It has been a profitable second quarter for India's largest airline, IndiGo, 189 crore profits versus loss last year. But there are problems of grounding of aircraft and other issues. But what is the outlook? How serious is the situation of aircraft? To talk all that and much more, I am joined by Pieter Elbers, CEO of IndiGo. Thank you for joining me, Pieter. Let's begin with the grounding of aircraft. Well, you have already announced the more grounding can happen in quarter four. How serious is the situation?
Thank you, Sumit. Good afternoon. Actually, I would have expected you to start with our Q2 results and the fact that after 5 years, we're making a profitable second quarter of FY24. And why do I say that in relation to your question? I think what is important to recognize that at IndiGo, we have been able to deal with the ongoing supply chain challenges actually since they emerged about a year ago. You may recall that about a year ago, the first indication of supply chain challenges were there, and we had given a capacity guidance in the north of the mid-teens for FY23. Today, and the second quarter is just a proof of that. Today, we're running in the second quarter on 28% capacity growth, and in the third quarter, we have announced to be roughly in the range of 25%. So we have taken a whole range of mitigating measures, ranging from lease extensions to damp leases of wide bodies, damp leases of narrow bodies, and keeping some of the elder fleet in operation. And that's pretty much also our vision and our strategy going forward. So against that backdrop, of course, we are aware of the latest announcements of Pratt Whitney indicating, due to the powder metal, that engines have to be recalled. But at IndiGo, we have taken a whole range of mitigating measures. And with these mitigating measures, we in fact have reconfirmed last Friday at the publication of our results, our capacity guidance in the north of mid-teens for this year, FY23.
And coming to your quarterly results now, then, what were the main contributors to that? And out of them, how much will be also continuing with you going forward? Crude price was one factor that actually hit your profitability a bit. That is also increasing. How do you see all these factors, and what were the reasons for this quarter two results?
Yeah. Well, I think there's three elements which are there. One you have mentioned, there's of course the price of the fuel, which is always fluctuating, and as we know, there's always a correlation between the price of the fuel and eventually about the tariffs. And you saw fare levels which were lower than the quarter before. So one is the price of the fuel. The other two, and I would say actually even more important factors, are firstly a very healthy demand, which is still there out in the Indian market. And India today is probably one of the fastest, if not the fastest growing aviation market in the world, surely of this size. And that both on the domestic side as well as on the international side continues to grow. The third piece of it is the effective and I would say efficient introduction and execution of the strategy which we have launched last year at IndiGo, of which part is internationalization, part of further expanding our network, developing more domestic city pairs. So these three factors, fuel cost, healthy demand, and execution of our strategy have been the main contributors. And that now has completed not only a second quarter, which is profitable, but also a full cycle of 4 consecutive quarters of profits.
And the capacity, well, let's talk about capacity now. In absence of many aircraft, 40 are currently grounded, more are going to be. How are you going to mitigate this? How are you going to even make good this loss? On to what measures?
Yeah, I think we have been demonstrating over the past year really that we have in fact a very agile and effective way of introducing additional capacity. And when the supply chain challenges started to emerge somewhere last year, we started with extension of leases. So we have extended leases, planes which were supposed to go out, they remained within IndiGo. That was one step. The second step we took was the introduction of 2 wide-body aircraft, notably operating on Delhi, Istanbul, and Mumbai, Istanbul, which were helping us to make sure that we have adequate lift to that side. The third step we have been doing is basically we kept a steady influx of planes which were on order already. Let me remind you, we have almost 1 plane coming each and every week. So with this influx of new capacity, we have I would say almost a natural hedge, if that's the correct word, against some of these AOGs. Last but not least, we have recently concluded another induction of another 11 planes, which we took on damp lease, which in fact, as we speak, are coming in one by one. That's all what has been done. Going forward, we continue on that track. Just only in the month of December, we got 3 more ATR aircraft coming in, so that's helpful. We got new Airbuses coming in, and we're evaluating a further increase of damp lease aircraft going forward.
But Peter, talking about the leasing environment in India after Go First has gone down, hasn't the leasing cost it increased a lot because of the lessors couldn't possess Go First aircraft in that? So in that scenario, leasing costs have gone up. Isn't it going to hurt you also?
I think there's a couple of factors here. There was, of course, in some initial reactions to of course the grounding of Go First and the impact on that on the international leasing community. More recently, some new adjustments have taken place, which is allowing the lessors to repossess their planes. I think more than I would say these disruptions, international lease prices are driven very much also by what's the interest levels. And at IndiGo, I think we have, and that's an important factor, we have demonstrated to be a very reliable party. During COVID, which was of course the worst time for the industry, IndiGo has taken each and every plane which was in the order book. IndiGo has paid each and every lease installment which was to be paid. So I think beside the factors which are there on the global stage, the factors which are there on an Indian stage, IndiGo has demonstrated to be a very reliable and trustworthy partner for these leasing companies.
And Peter, Pratt Whitney, well, you said that you are in touch with them, you have received communication from them, and it will depend on the service bulletin now. When are you going to listen or maybe get some final clarity on how many aircraft are going to be grounded? Can you give us a number, and what about the compensation from Pratt Whitney?
You know, as one of the largest, if not the largest operator of Pratt & Whitney engines, of course, we're in constant dialogue with Pratt & Whitney, both on what precisely is going to happen at what point in time, as well as on the financial part of it. And I think next to what the precise information from the Pratt & Whitney side is, we're also discussing with them how can they help us to take some of these mitigating measures. And until we have that clarity, any number would be more like speculation going forward, because it all depends. There's an equation of what is the number of planes and what's the number of engines being involved on the one hand side, and how much mitigation we can do on the other hand side. So we focus clearly on not only what is the impact, but also how we can do the mitigation and to what extent Pratt can help in addressing that mitigation. When it comes to the compensation, of course, that's an outcome to clearly also what's the overall impact. And that's been a topic of discussions, I should say intense discussions we're having, of course, with Pratt & Whitney.
And any clarity on compensation when it will come to you? That is also depending on the grounding and the clear picture on grounding of aircraft, the numbers?
Yeah, well, I think you pretty much mentioned it. That is, of course, there's a correlation between what's going to be the compensation on the one hand side and what is going to be the precise number of groundings. And as that number of groundings and as that number of supply chain challenges is still fluctuating, the same would go for that number on compensation. I think what is clear that IndiGo is operating in world's most dynamic, vibrant and fastest growing market. We need that capacity, and we're putting all our energy in obtaining that capacity with the help of Pratt, and outside the help of Pratt also with some other arrangements we're doing.